Yo, what is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy B, and today we are going to be recounting and also giving our flowers where they are due, in that we shall congratulate the winners of the first ever inaugural and debut season for Roots of War League in 30 NA. Great job, you did it. And so this is also going to be as a way, this video, along with a sheet that, again, I'm going to have posted on my Discord for those of you that would just like to have access to the master. I don't think at this point I'm going to end up doing kind of a public version, just because the first season's kind of over with, and I'm most likely just going to end up having individual sheets per each season. That's just kind of how I'm thinking of it right now. Of course, as always, if you enjoy the content and help us out, throw us out. Thank you. So I'll be showing that off in a sec. But to recount, the idea being is I thought it was really important to be able to have some kind of historical reference, because once the season ends here, which again, for me as of recording, right, it's about 11:30 in the evening right now, and we can see that there is less than 20 hours, which means going into the 7th of December, which technically in-game time would be going into the 8th at reset, this information arguably will disappear. No one is going to know any of the information. Now, maybe previous season league winners will be there. Maybe there will be some archiving, like as an example, right? You'll be able to see, right, this is pretty cool, being able to think most used heroes, right? You'll be able to have season rankings. So you'll see where everyone placed in the end. I guess you will have some data. Now, obviously, you probably won't be able to look at the past data until the season ends. And the other challenge as well is that, and this is pretty cool because they do show you a lot of personal data. They'll show you the alliance stuff. This is pretty cool. Win margins, occupation. But the one thing you're not going to be able to see, which I just assume is going to be the case, is you're not going to be able to see like the not the placings, but in the brackets, as far as like who was matched up against who in what rounds. Maybe that'll be somewhere, like again, possibly it'll be here where it'll say like competition matches. I mean, again, so you'll be able to see at least who they fought, but you may not necessarily know at what stage they fought. Maybe you could insinuate that based on that. And so I just felt like, okay, this is, even though they're going to have, I'm sure, their stuff, I figured if people want to kind of be able to keep up with and follow along from the start of the season on how things looked, on top of which some of the power, from what I noticed, can appeared to fluctuate at a certain time. So, for example, from one round to another, you might have some different power numbers that represented that team's strength that was somewhere, and not to say that it was a massive change, but being able to account for things like that, at least in a number of areas, right, we were able to do on our sheet. And so even if it just serves as kind of a secondary asset for those of you that are interested in it, right, again, I'll make sure I have that available. It'll be on my Discord. You can join us by going to Discord link in the pinned comment description down below. With that being said, let's head over and take a look. So remember, initially, when we saw all of the teams that were registered, we were able to put all these together for the newcomer and then the Strife conference, right? So we showed kind of everyone that was there. We then looked at the prelims. So we showed you all the prelim data that was from, I think, the 32 divisions that were in Strife. And we basically showed you everyone that was there. Now, I think next time, now that I actually have a template for this, my plan would be to either do for a day one day 2, day 3 tab, or I would just wait until the prelims finish and then just do the final tallies. So that might be what I do, because when I look back on here, I think we only went to day 2. So I'd have to go back and look at the day 3 stuff, or just kind of how everything ended. And then we also did the qualifier rounds, which, remember, that's where 4 kingdoms made it through. And then you ended up having the one division winner. And then we looked at finally getting to playoffs, right? And you can kind of see like who made it through, right? So the winners here that are bolded would make it through to Strife playoffs. And so these would be like the playoffs, but the group stages. And then if their character is bolded, that means that they made it past the Strife playoffs in the group stage. And then they made it to the knockout rounds, or the playoff bracket, if you will. And so now we make it to the playoff bracket. And this is pretty simple, right? Because there's essentially 4 rounds here for the 16 teams, right? You had some on the west and some on the east. And that's kind of how I had divvied these up, because you could see like here's the teams that were on the western side of the bracket, and then teams that were on the eastern side of the bracket. And then you can see who fought who. Right, this is just kind of using what the base power was from the Strife Conference initial pool. I think next time I'm going to try and update the stuff in real time. So from like one match to the next, if there's some power fluctuations, I might try to account for that. Obviously, it would take a little bit longer to do. And I'm still trying to figure out maybe like what other data I could put in outside of just some of the match details. Like maybe if I did, like, for example, if we went back here, right, obviously on the group stages, right, we input some more data. Now you guys would have to let me know if this kind of stats columns would be of interest when it comes to the playoffs and the knockout rounds, along with maybe anything else that you'd like to see that obviously would be would be data relevant based on what is being shown and displayed in Row League. I mean, I like kind of what they did initially, where you could go through and you could click on, like, as an example, if I went to playoffs and I clicked on a name, I liked how this pop-up was here and it showed you at least, some stats, which I thought was great. And then obviously how it kind of does, the prelims. I mean, again, I think initially the alliance or the team cards as a version 1 were done really well. And I think when I look back on the season as a whole, I like that you were able to rewatch matches pretty much right after they finished. I thought that was a great addition. I would almost love to see them do something where, maybe casting matches kind of once playoff starts instead of only for the finals. I think there was a big opportunity there. I know I had even talked to Guns about us doing some kind of preview prep cast matches for Row League, even before like the next season, if we're able to find like 2 teams, and or even if not, once the next season starts, maybe like finding some early matches to kind of do some not necessarily testing, but like some casting, some kind of like warm up casting matches. Because I told him, I was like, man, I have a really good outline, a really good idea on like how we could play off each other really well for casting. Because I used to do casting and gameplay analysis for previous games that I was really interested in, and I've watched a couple Row League matches, and it absolutely does interest me. And so hopefully it'll be something that we can maybe work into the second season, because I would obviously love to do something like that. However, again, I'd like to know from you guys, like, what else as far as stat lines would you like to see? And for Road League Season 2, is there anything else you'd like to see as a spectator, right, as a consumer of watching? And even if you're someone participating, I guess as well, any changes, any feedback you have. Again, I know there was a survey that was put out too as well. Maybe we'll take a look and do another video on that after we fill it out. But aside from that, again, I don't want this to be too long. I just wanted to kind of go over and show people the sheet, right, where you'll be able to access it on my COD on the data stats channel. That's going to be in the Call of Dragons section. So you'll just go over to reaction roles. Once you join, you'll select Call of Dragons. And then once that category pops out, you'll go to the COD data stats channel, and it's going to be there somewhere on one of those two headers. You'll be able to find it. That's it for me, man. I mean, again, obviously, as I said, man, congrats to 30 NA for taking the win on basically a reverse sweep, if you will, even though it probably would have needed to be best of 5 instead of a best of 3. But the fact that it at least went a full 3 games, I mean, that's pretty awesome, right? I think everyone is happy that it wasn't just kind of a 2-0, if you will, because I think that would have been, I'm sure, a little bit more of a, I don't want to say a letdown, but probably just a little deflated level of excitement that would have plagued the first season. So again, really good showing for how everything played out, I think, in the end. That's it for me, though. As always, until next time, we'll catch you later.